There are many things that we believe about God. And I think one of the things that we believe is the fact that God is fair. God is fair in the way that he treats people in situations, in similar circumstances, and that God is kind and loving and compassionate and forgiving. But at the same time, we also expect God to be just. And we don't expect him to haphazardly hand out blessings and punishments in random and arbitrary and haphazard ways. It's actually the way that many of us would want the world to be able to work, maybe except when it comes to us and we're looking for maybe special favors or things like that here and there, but that's another talk about another time, okay? So when you think about that, when you think about situations, if you take that as an assumption about God, and then you look at the readings that we have today and you wonder, well, what's going on? What's the difference between the readings that we have? We have the first reading that we have from Genesis, and that Abraham encounters three men, and apparently he recognizes that there's something special about them. Somehow he sees this as not an ordinary encounter, and rather he sees something inside of him knows that there is some kind of God moment going on here. It's a holy moment. And so then what does he do? He and Sarah rush around, they get water, and then they go for flour, and they want to knead dough so that they can make some rolls. And then they kill a steer and prepare it to be able to serve it to them. And they are blessed with a child, even though Sarah was up in years. And so far, so good. And we may have done the same if we were in that same type of situation. But then we have the Gospel from Luke. And so Jesus visits Martha and Mary, and Martha sits at his feet. Mary sits at his feet, while Martha is the one who runs around and shows him all kinds of hospitality, prepares the meal, waits on him hand and foot. And then Jesus gently corrects Martha, while at the same time he affirms Mary. And so the question then is that, given situations about hospitality, is this really fair? Abraham, Sarah, and Martha are doing all the same thing. They're preparing meals for their guests. They're simply attending to the needs of those in their midst. They're all being really good hosts, yet Abraham and Sarah get a tremendous blessing. And then Martha gets far less. She gets some mildly disappointing words from Jesus. So what gives in this situation? Is this a situation of God being unfair? Is God treating two people acting the same way in the same situation differently? So is God being unjust? So sometimes when it comes to the moral life, we think that the only thing that matters is the action itself. And so we tend to equate things that look the same from the outside. Two people give the same to charity, so each must be as generous and good as the other. So two people equally work as hard at the same job, so their two actions must be the same. So two people visit their elderly parents on a weekly basis, so there's no difference that's there, right? And so you have two people steal a few items from a grocery store. So they've done the same, the same wrong thing, right? So I think you know where this is going. One of the great truths about living the moral life is that if we look at the faithfulness, in quote, the faithfulness of any choice made is not simply the action itself. So when we think about the choices we make, they also have to include what we know about the act. So the degree to that we know that the act that we're about to do is either right or wrong. And after that, we have to look at our own personal freedom to choose this act, whether or not there are any other factors that are, or circumstances that are beyond our control, compelling us one way or the other. And then finally, and probably most importantly, it's what our intentions are behind this act. In other words, it's not just the what, but it's the why we are doing this act. And this is why the two actions that apparently look the same from the outside can be anything but. And maybe more importantly, regarding the way that God sees a particular person performing a particular act in a particular situation. And so it might look like Abraham, Sarah, and Martha are all doing the same thing, but it appears that it is not so. And then we get a little glimpse of that, into the why of that, from the words that Jesus speaks in the gospel today. He says, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and worried about so many things. Now, it's impossible to know exactly what was in the mind of Martha, but from what Jesus' comment is, it seems pretty clear that something was lacking in her motivation. And that one thing that is lacking seems to be joy. She definitely was serving Jesus. That much is true. But she was doing so without any apparent joy. Instead, she was stressed, she was worried, she was heavily burdened, somehow letting the situation of her perceived responsibilities get in the way of her having the best encounter she possibly could with Jesus. And then on the flip side, it seems that Abraham and Sarah were thrilled to show hospitality to those three men. They were elated at the encounter that they were having, and they seemed to be filled with so much joy and excitement and enthusiasm in carrying out their duties. Whereas Martha, on the other hand, seemed to be weighed down by hers, as evidenced by her criticism of Mary. So intentions do matter. For example, one person might be giving to charity out of kindness, while another person may give that same amount, but only is doing so as a tax break. One person might work hard at their job because they feel that what they are doing is really contributing something to the betterment of society, while the other person doing that same job is simply doing it with a paycheck to get as much money as possible. And one person might go and visit their parents on a weekly basis out of real love for them, whereas another person might be doing the same thing out of mere guilt. And therein lies the challenge, to pray that our motives become more and more perfected, so that we don't simply feel worried and burdened and weighed down by trying to show our love in the best way possible. Rather, we need to strive to be a little bit more, at least for today, like Abraham and Sarah, to be joyful and excited and happy to do what God is asking us to do, what God is expecting us to do, what God is deserving for us to do. And if we do so, not only we might be joyful, but we may also get